Hey, welcome to the Black Knight Nation podcast. I'm your host, Sal Internado. The Black Knight Nation podcast is brought to you by Higher Echelon. Higher Echelon is a company owned by Joe Ross. Joe Ross sponsoring our podcast, former Army fullback, former Army assistant coach, former Army officer, and a guest on the Black Knight Nation podcast. Check out the Black Knight Nation podcast on YouTube, our YouTube channel. Our subscribers are up, and we have a guest tonight that we've been looking forward to having all week long. It's Kelvin White. Kelvin, thanks a lot for joining Steve and I tonight.
Well, Sal, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And Steve, I know that I'm getting out soon, but I could call you sir forever. So, Sal, thank you so much for the introduction. Really looking forward to share my story and, being a part of this whole thing.
Absolutely. Guys, if you're watching right now, on StreamYard, we have a little bit of an issue. So, I'm going to put out a little note. You can watch this on YouTube. We're trying to get it on the X accounts too. So thanks for watching right now. And Steve, usually we start on the journey to West Point. And Kelvin, I know you had a pretty interesting journey to West Point out of Pennsylvania. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about your recruiting story and what interested you in West Point and how you ended up at Army.
Yeah, Sal, thank you so much. I'm sure you posted me on, Facebook or Twitter at the time then or whatever when I committed. But, I love my story. It's very unique. But I was getting recruited by all the schools in Pennsylvania, D1, AA, preferred walk-ons to Pitt, Penn State. And I was actually on a trip down to the University of Delaware to go to like a recruiting game. And I had told my friend's dad, we were both driving there together, carpooling and stuff. And, I told him, I said, West Point's coming in next week to recruit me. And I don't know what West Point is. I didn't grow up in a military family. I don't know anything, but they just said Army was going to come in next week. And literally I thought a tire popped. He like pulled off the side of the highway. We were in Lancaster, Amish country, going down to Delaware. And he was like, hey, listen, if Army comes to recruit you, like you're going to go to West Point. Do you understand? And I was like, he's like, I'll turn this car around. We don't even have to go to this game. Because my friend at the time, Bryce Wilson, he ended up going to Penn State. So it was just kind of like one of those things where we were going there to show face to the University of Delaware. And obviously, like, we were both very interested. We were getting recruited by them. So fast forward, Tucker Wall comes into my high school, sits down in the cafeteria, shows me, a couple like Forbes #1 school in the country, all these things. And I didn't actually care about any of that stuff. Didn't even see the campus. Never been to West Point. And he showed me, he was like, we want you. And I said, yeah, I'm coming. So I'll sign whatever paperwork you need. I'm on my way. So then after that, I took a, official visit, or maybe it was a, unofficial or something. But I came up there and I ran into Adisa King at that time, Colonel Adisa King now, Bronco Brigade commander out in 25th ID. And it was easy. It was a no-brainer. So, fell in love with the campus, fell in love with the program. It's not very – I'm going to, address the elephant in the room. I'm 6'4", 225 in high school. So me coming as a quarterback to play triple option offense wasn't a real thing. So, I banged my head against that wall, and I love that. And I actually ended up falling in love with the triple option offense, just not as a quarterback. So, so I went to prep school, USMAPS.
Well, Kelvin, 1 second. So you talked about Coach Wall coming in, just sitting down, showing you some stats about West Point. Was there any discussion about service in the military? Why were you so ready to commit? Was it just from what your dad's friend told you, or did you do some research within that time frame? Like, why was it like, yes, I'm coming there, like, say no more?
Fiddy, that's a good question. I think I should say that I did some research, but like, this guy, Mark Wilson, is, he's like the equivalent of my dad, right? And like what he says to me is like, he doesn't just say it to say it. So he kind of elaborated, like, this will change your life, right? You'll serve in the military for 5 years afterwards. He had known because like every adult knows what West Point is, right? Not every 18-year-old or 19-year-old or, high school kid knows that. But I actually don't remember looking anything up. I don't remember doing anything. I was literally just like, I'm jumping off this bridge. Like Mark said, this is what's going to happen. And, that's how strongly I felt about it. And then
do you remember what time of year this was? Was this before signing? Was this after signing? Was it during the season before,
Yeah, so this would have been after the season. Coach Wall came to my basketball game. I was playing against Trinity High School in Central Pennsylvania, Camp Hill. We smacked them. We were good at basketball in high school. So, but he was there. If anybody knows Tucker Wall, he was wearing his sweater vest. He looked all professional and stuff, and he was just like, you couldn't miss the Army guy sitting in the stands and recruit me, talk to me, and that would have been probably December, January, and then I think I signed my letter of intent in February. So it was like a very, very short flash to bang of him coming in, and like I was ready to go. Like I thought I was going to commit to Georgetown. At that time, Georgetown told me I was going to be the Cam Newton of the Patriot League. So I was ready to go, man. I was ready to go, but there's a plan for everybody.
You ended up playing quarterback at prep or no?
I did, actually. It was me, DeAndre Bell, AJ Scher. We were the three recruited quarterbacks in the class of 2011. We all went to prep. I played quarterback. DeAndre moved to like slot back, then wide receiver, and then AJ. So like AJ and I kind of split reps most of the season. And then I actually played quarterback my freshman year and my sophomore year. Obviously didn't play at all my freshman year behind Trent. And then I played 6 games, I think. Started 2 as a sophomore, Boston College and Temple. But yeah, I mean, when Coach Monken came, it was a different story. But I'll pump the brakes there because that's going to be a huge topic of this conversation.
Yeah, and that was your time at prep school is when our relationship started. They were allowed me to go down there to the prep for about 2 of the months as a senior, as a 5th-year cadet, and then I got to coach for through training camp, through a couple games, and then the ODIA, the regulation of cadet and cadet candidate relationships. Army football wasn't strong enough to overcome that regulation, so they moved me. They took me away from coaching those guys. But I mean, that was 2011. Me and Kelvin started, and we developed a relationship from then, and just kind of stayed in touch over the years. I always got a soft spot for my USMAPS guys. That's down right. There. They're my little brothers, man. That was fun. That was good. That was the first team, right? First team to play at West Point, right? There's no more Fort Monmouth. So you just did the golf outing, right?
I did.
Did you do any of did you go to the old stomping grounds at all during that time?
Oh yeah.
How different was USMAPS when you just saw it compared to USMAPS when you were there?
So I started there, and I actually saw Colonel retired Mike Rounds at the golf outing as well. He was the commandant or DCG or whatever. I think it was Colonel Rubenstein as well. But Colonel Rounds, we had this conversation. We were taking buses from the prep school because it wasn't finished yet. The only part that was finished was the barracks and the cafeteria. And we would take buses every morning down to, cadet area and Cullum Hall and the basement of Thayer. And we were taking classes down there. And then I'd say probably it was either Thanksgiving break or Christmas break, one of those two. We came back in and the school was finished. So we had, the gym was done. The rest of the facilities were done. We were able to do spring ball and all that stuff down there.
You did forget one point, Kelvin. The football practice field was done as well, though.
Yes, I apologize. Yes, yeah, we did practice up there too.
They didn't forget to make sure that was ready before opening day. So
yeah, but it was a great experience. Obviously, being the first class there, and then seeing really the impact of the proximity that the school has, USMAPS has on like West Point, right? The other service academies, like look at the boat school. There are prep schools in Rhode Island, and like their main schools in Annapolis, right? So those coaches, those kids commit to school to be coached by those coaches, and then they see them maybe once or twice. Now being at West Point for the past 9-10 years, really, 14 years, 13 years, is just like super beneficial because they go up, have lunch with them, they can see them, in the off season, and I'm sure there's like some rules and regulations and stuff, but I've seen prepsters come down to our mat drills and stand out in that cold, and watch us just get after it. So the proximity is a killer, and I think Coach Monken mentioned.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Steve.
They're not Army prep football players at that point. They are cadet candidates watching what happens at Army and at cadet land. So there are. I remember looking into this a couple years back, talking about what you're talking about, the benefits, and there's certain, right? You're putting on certain hats during certain times to make sure you're dotting your I's and crossing your T's.
Yeah, but even then, right? Like if I'm a prepster, I can literally walk down past practice, right? Like I'm a cadet candidate that just wants to see practice or see these guys, and that opportunity to do that. And a lot of these guys are just taking the initiative on their own because that's the type of guys that are coming to West Point anyways, and just fighting to be a part of the brotherhood because it's strong, Steve. It's strong right now. I watched those guys do a player-led practice, and they look different than what I looked like when I played out there. I'll tell you that much.
One question I always like to ask my prepsters is, who's the one player that got away that you wish would have tried the academy?
Probably Maurice Gilmore Shoemaker. He was a running back. He ended up going to Central Michigan, and then he ended up playing at Illinois Wesleyan. I think he broke every record at Illinois Wesleyan. It's probably a D2 or D3 school, but he was from Kankakee, Illinois. And he was just he was a different type of dude. He had a hard head, big, strong body. He was just a phenomenal football player and just a better person. And, it would have been really, really cool to play with him at the next level. But, life happens.
So you guys have a really successful year at prep, right? Beat Navy, right?
Yes, we did.
And you guys are feeling pretty good about that prep school class, kind of to that next step, right? Like moving on to become, plebes, freshmen, whatever, and making a difference and continuously, because that was a bad football season at West Point. I think you're right. I think your records were reversed or something. Like you guys were 9-2 and they were 2-9 or something that year.
Yep.
Yeah. So that probably made you guys a lot we had a really good prep school class, and the year we were going in, they went 3-9 or something. We were fired up to turn this program around because we really felt like we had the prep school, we had a core group of guys that could make a difference. Is that something that you guys felt at prep, we just need to get there and figure out where we fit?
Yeah, absolutely. The year before that year, that would have been your senior year. You guys won a bowl game. So everybody was fired up, right? This was just a down year. We knew that we had the talent to be successful. And I think when we went 3-9, everybody was yo, I can play. I'll just walk in here and play. And I think that helped a lot of confidence in people to stay, because, obviously, like, when you think about it, if you have a bad record, it like kind of turns people off. But people that have already committed to go to the prep school and do a year, at the prep school, like, we're ready to go. Like, we want to walk into camp. We want to, like, we're prepared to go into, cadet summer training. We're prepared to, go into camp. Like, we want to play. Like, we know that we can contribute. So, I would say that everybody had that feeling.
Yeah, and I also feel like there's something to say about the type of person that is recruited that can go through cadet candidate basic training or cadet basic training, as far as like a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, or like you want to be part of something greater than yourself, and you want to bring a winning program to Army. That's like we got a little bit of a taste of it, and then it was like, okay, we went back a little bit. It's like, no. Like, we want to be a part of the team that makes winning a routine thing here.
Yeah. No, that's perfectly put. And when you beat Navy at prep school, like, when you talk about coming downhill into, the next spring, the next summer, like, now you see the guys that you're going to play against at the academy. It's like, yeah, we already dogged you guys out.
Yeah.
But, I never beat Navy, so it's good.
Well, okay. Well, your freshman year is, I believe, still Coach Ellerson, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Freshman and sophomore.
Yeah. So freshman, sophomore year, you got Coach Ellerson. Tell us about that culture, that dynamic, kind of the feeling around the team with that.
Yeah, just disclaimer, right? I wouldn't be who I am today without Coach Ellerson taking a chance on me. It just given me the opportunity to come to West Point. That being said, though, like, you can't win at West Point like how we were trying to win. And I'm saying that because the core of cadets that were like so ingrained, right? It was like a core first, football second type thing. And don't get me wrong, right? Like, everybody in the core is part of the core of cadets. Like, I'm not discrediting anybody's experiences or anything like that, but like, if you want to be competitive on a national stage, like, you have to keep the main thing. And I could talk about this till I'm blue in the face. The people who played organized sports in college at the Division I level are like, they have a significant advantage when it comes to like leadership and challenges, like adversity that they face and perseverance. And like, I could talk about this forever. But the whole point is, like, we were molding the football team around the core of cadets in order to try to like make better cadets. Whereas like winning was not really like it wasn't like the main thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, Coach Ellerson was like staunch, and he was literally churning out like cadets. He wanted us to like come to West Point, be a part of the core, like come out of West Point as second lieutenants, like ready to lead. And I think that we had a lot of blurred lines there, as far as like, the things that we were doing, like practices at 7 a.m. to 9 a.m, and then going back and like doing a full day of school, watching film at lunch in the cafeteria, like, one of those like break off rooms over there. Like, that's where we watched film at. And then we would go the rest of the day. And then we would all go up to the stadium, get rehab, watch more film, and then we would come back. And I think that the conformity to try to like appease, whoever it was, the superintendent, the BTO, whatever, I think that was like very hard, because you have a whole bunch of young guys, who just we're here to like play football and like win, right? And it was like very, very difficult and confusing to kind of see like, hey, I need to come to prehab, or I need to come to prehab, and I need to do this. And it's like, yeah, man, well, like, you got to go to that formation, or you got to go to this thing. And like, and I threw out that disclaimer because you know, it's still a common debate right now of like the football players or core squad athletes get out of stuff that they don't need to get out of. But at the end of the day, like Division I football takes 5 to 6 hours out of my day. I'm expected to continue to do the same workload you do as a cadet at West Point, one of the most rigorously academic schools in the country, with 6 hours taken away from me. So, you know, like it's fine. And then you want to go complain because like we're not winning games, but I'm not going to bed till 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock because now I've got to stay up and study for the same test that you've been studying for the past 2 days. So I think the culture was like very much cadet first, football second. And I mean, it showed, right? Like we won 2 games my freshman year, and I think we won maybe 3 games my sophomore year, maybe less.
Yeah, Kelvin, when you went to the morning practices, right? Was that Ellerson's last year or no? Or was that the year before? Because I was at those morning practices and you're giving it a little bit, you're generous there. I remember being there before 7 o'clock. I mean, you guys were going. I mean, you guys were on the field ready to, you know, go.
It's PT hours, right, Kelvin?
Yeah, but I mean, it was before PT, right? Because if you had to get taped and prehab, you're on like the 5:20 bus.
But I think that was as you talk about being part of the core and hey, how do we, you know, kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone type of deal? Like, oh, we're going to do football practice during PT hours because that's when physical training's done in the Army. So that's how you get that kind of that block check of, hey, this is when we can do it. And I wasn't here for all the changes. Like Coach Ellerson came in, we kind of just ran with what we got, changed the offense, changed the defense, and then it was like, this is what we got. So the changes occurred after I had left. And I just remember like hearing that and being like, wait, what? Like, why are we doing that? Like, what's the, and I never got an answer and I never went looking for it. I just kind of, all right, well, let's see how this plays out. And, you know, I wonder, and Kelvin, if you can think back to when you were going through it, was there a feeling amongst the team that like, hey, are we, like you mentioned blurred lines, like, are we a football team first or are we cadets first and we are going to fit football in? Because I think that makes a huge difference of a culture if players feel like there isn't a priority to what they were brought here to do.
Yeah, I mean, Steve, that's a phenomenal question. 1, 2, I do think that the blurred lines that I was trying to get after there is exactly what you said. We were just struggling to like find our identity, and we just felt like we didn't have like the support to like fight back against like the core of cadets essentially.
Yeah.
And I say that, and it's like, it like makes me feel a little bit like icky saying it because like at the end of the day, like I wake up as a cadet, I go to sleep as a cadet, I'm a cadet, but like no, I've already mentioned, you know, like
it's not necessarily, it's not that. I think it's more so, at least what I'm hearing, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. What it sounds like is you guys didn't necessarily feel as a team that you could go and get that support. Not necessarily like guys were like, hey, this is a problem, we need to fix it. There was none of the, whether it was the leadership of the team or it seems like to me that this was just how it was going to be, and this is what you guys had to put up with. And that was the line. And there was not that bridge, or there wasn't that line of communication where you would hope the informal leaders can go to the captains and the captains can go to the coach and be like, Coach, like something's got to give here. Like the masses are not happy, and we've got to figure this out, right?
Yeah, and I think, again, like I think that Coach Ellerson was much more sympathetic to the core of cadets. Sympathetic is probably the right word. Like nobody felt comfortable going to Coach Ellerson and be like, hey, we need this. like, we need you to like cover down for us. Cause at the time, I think it was General Huntoon was the superintendent. And General Ted Martin was the commandant. So at the time, right, like we were literally just doing what we were told. Like, just like, you're going to be here, you're going to do this, and like, we'll get you guys some Gatorades and some Powerades, right?
That's kind of funny. Just knowing those general officers' personalities and how during that time period things had changed a little bit. And I just, man, to just be a fly on the wall to hear how it played out would just be interesting. But
yeah. So I mean, we could just transition. I scored my first touchdown against Louisiana Tech as a sophomore. I ran a 1-yard run. Angel Santiago's helmet came off, and AJ was hurt, so I scored my first touchdown in the Cotton Bowl. That was sick. It was sick, dude. So just like some stuff you'll never forget, and like, I'll be able to tell my kids, like, you know, I scored my first touchdown there. But, you know, moving on, I think the transition period from when Coach Monken came, like, that is probably one of the most crucible events I've ever been through in my life. Like, on a professional level, you know, not the personal things, not like the things I did growing up or anything like that is like hardest. But like, when I say like it was hard, I mean, I'm talking, it was like really, really, really hard.
Now, when is it all facets, mental, emotional, spiritually, and physically hard? Is it just cultural shock hard? This is one of my favorite questions to ask players that were there during the transition from Ellerson to Monken, because of such the significant change of how things were going to go on from like, I'm the coach now. That day, things changed the way he wanted them. Whereas a lot of times, you know, we're always taught as officers, hey, take your 30 days.
30 days.
Work your way in, you know, don't just make changes right away unless they're like, you know, common sense changes. So this is one of my favorite questions to ask players during the Ellerson-Monken transition is, what made it so difficult, mental, emotionally, spiritually, and physically, when Coach Monken came in on day one, or really day zero, and started making changes?
There were no blurred lines anymore, Steve. Like, zero things were left interpretation. Like, there was nothing that was ambiguous. You know, it was like, this is how it's going to go. And if you don't want it to go like that, then you don't have to be on this team anymore. Like, it was like, if you can imagine like the Coach Carter, if you ever seen the movie Coach Carter, when their best players leave the gym, and Coach Carter's like, yeah, well, we'll have new best players. Like, that's legitimately, like, if you could live that situation, like, that's how it went. So
was this in the auditorium? Was this in the field? Were you guys in stands? Where was this taking place?
Yeah, so obviously everybody sees the press release. Like, you know, Coach Ellerson knew once we lost to Navy, he wasn't coming back. And there was it was down. I think Boo Corrigan was interviewing two guys, Ben Kotwicka, who was a grad, and it was between him and Coach Monken. And like, we saw Coach Monken, and I think that's where we did a little bit of research, right? You know, he came from Georgia Southern. He worked at Navy before, and we're like, oh, here we go. And the thing that happened, the first thing that happened that was wild was, I don't know, we come up the stairs and we all have our cleats and we're doing like it's like strength training or whatever, and we just have our cleats all throughout the foyer. Like, when you come into Kimsey, like the back way by the weight room and, you know, the elevator right there. And I'm talking like, you know, dudes just like throw their cleats on the ground. And he comes in the gym, like in the auditorium, we're all sitting there, like, you know, and we're all talking, and he's like walks down the side and like walks to the front, and we're all just like talking. We're not paying him any mind, right? And he like blows his whistle or something to that effect. And this guy, and he goes, I won't say the exact words, but he
Go
said,
ahead. Say the exact
he
words.
said, you motherfuckers have 5 minutes to get your cleats and put them back in your lockers. And if you're late, I'm going to fuck you up. And when I tell you that we were like cockroaches when the lights turned on, oh my God. We, like dudes were like running, tripping over each other, trying to get out. Like there was a fire in the auditorium or something. Obviously we don't make it back in time. It's 150 players. And he was just very, very direct. Sal, you know what I'm saying? Like he didn't like mince his words. He told you what he expected. And then if you didn't meet your, like the high expectations that he had, then you would suffer the consequences because he had extremely high expectations. And similar disclaimer to Coach Ellerson. I'll give another one for Coach Monken. I still talk to Coach Monken like to this day. I think he is a leader and maker of men. And, I'm just like, regardless of how hard it was for me, like being a player and like, facing those, the crucible events that I talked about, like I'm a much better leader. I'm a much better person because of, the high expectations that he had. So, yeah. And Steve, to your point, I'll add another story. And there's thousands of them, right? But,
that's why we do this. This is my favorite part.
Yeah. I love this too, because I was one of those guys, right? I had just changed my number. I was number 2. Shout out to Anthony Stevens for handing that number down to me. So I was right next to Mapes, right? I was right. Like you walk in the locker room is Mapes' locker and then mine, and I'm like a sophomore going into my junior year. But I'm like, I thought I was going to be, the Steve Anderson captain for 2 years. I thought I was going to be this big deal. And this guy comes in and he told us, he said, if I see anything in your guys' locker that's not supposed to be there, you'll have a trash bag and you'll be getting dressed under the visitor stands. And like, yeah, all right. And I tell you that Nick Dieterman and the whole equipment staff were probably up all night packing lockers. We come in the next day and trash bags, all of your stuff, there is no discrimination. Your stuff, your toothpaste is in your shoes. Your shoes are like, it was trash bag. I just had a trash bag. And he was like, if your stuff's in a trash bag, you're going to take it over to the locker room. Now, mind you, the visitor locker room is under the old East stands, which are knocked down now, by the way, for the new improvements, which are going to be phenomenal. And it's freezing cold. There's no heat in there. The water's freezing cold. And if anybody's ever been on the Hudson, in January, February, March, like that is not where you want to be at. So I'm talking like seniors, rising juniors, the whole way down to like equipment managers. Their stuff is just like thrown in there, like get out of my locker. So it was a huge adjustment.
That is that breaks my heart about the locker. I had a huge shrine in my locker, man. I was like how Brian Dawkins, I don't know if you guys know about this. Brian Dawkins called himself the Wolverine. And he had like Wolverine figures, all this stuff. Well, dude, I had like Steve Anderson bobblehead dolls. I had Fitty like plaques. I had like my whole locker was like decked out. So I would have definitely been one of those guys that would have had a trash bag. And I would have been in those stands too. So I can appreciate that.
Yeah, Coach Monken. I can't even. I could go on for days. That guy is phenomenal. I mean, you just talk about like the presence that he has. And if we go back a little bit to like going to somebody like, hey, I have a problem. Like I need somebody. Like I need support. Like that. I'm talking. I don't care if it's the president. Like Coach Monken, if you're talking crazy or you're doing something that's like not helping the organization win a football game, like he's coming down there like a rattlesnake, and you like felt that, you know what I'm saying? Like you felt like you had like that big brother now, like I'm down here, like say something crazy to me because like I'll run back up this hill right now, and like I've got like the armada behind me. When you feel that type of energy, like, man, it is like you don't even want to leave. I'm talking like you don't want to leave the stadium. You want to like be up there. You want to get better. You want to do more. You just like want to win. Like you want to win for this guy because like, you know, he's a winner. Like he knows what it takes to win.
And for when you talked about him as he's a leader of men, like that is what the most important part of the military academy is. We used to hear it all the time. The best class you're going to get on leadership is the Army football program, right? That's what's going to prepare you to be a leader the most out of all the classes and all the field training exercises. Because one, that's where you spend, you know, over 50% of your time at the academy at, right? So one, it's got the most investment, but two, you get to experience leadership at various levels that you can take things away from. And I know hearing you, Kelvin, and knowing you from prep school and then knowing you as a lieutenant and then knowing you as a regiment guy and the way you have developed over years, I know the way Coach Monken handled that program affected the way how you were going to be as a future leader in the United States Army. And there's you can't deny that because it was almost stamped on you when he showed you what having that big brother was like.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm just like little things, Steve, you know, like you ever get, like we did mat drills, right? And Sal, you've probably been to some mat drills and everybody knows what mat drills are. But we didn't know what mat drills were when Coach Ellerson was around. And we did hard stuff, but it wasn't like mat drills. So, you know, 4 degrees on the Hudson, we're outside, you know, doing up downs until the cows come home. And, you know, I wanted to cut off Coach Wall's thumb one time because he just gave us thumbs down. Like everybody had like this thought in their head that like, oh, I'll just like look like I'm hustling and we'll just move to the next one. Steve, we did the same station 38 times in a row. I'm talking like over and over and over again. And like everybody's like, oh, well, we didn't do all 6 stations. So, you know, we'll see you back here tomorrow. And we were supposed to do it Monday, Wednesday, Friday for like 2 weeks or something like that. And when I tell you that, like, seeing that, and when you talk about holding somebody to like a standard, like that, everything I've ever done hard in my life, like it all goes back to mat drills, right? That is like my base. That is my base factor of like, oh, this shit is hard. It can't hold water to those 4-degree days where like my sweat's like not even getting out of my skin because it's freezing. Like I can't even tell you like how hard it was just to compete against those guys every single day. But like when I tell you that I had high expectations from then on, like it was like I really expected every single snap of every single game of every single play that everybody was going to do their job. You know what I'm saying? Like I felt that. Like I lived that because I was like, I'm not like, if you miss an assignment in a game, you were just doing up downs on Monday when you came back. You missed a blocking assignment. You fumbled the ball. You know, it's like, we will be perfect. You know, you fumble the ball, I'll break my foot off in your John Brown. You know what I'm saying? Like that was real. Like that was real. So
with the high expectations though only hold water if you're held accountable. And that's what you're talking about here is you got to get away from, you know, what it sounds like to me from one of your first statements that you said about how it's just different. Those players are running players drills and it's just different. It's not Coach Monken anymore running the drills, right? It's the accountability piece of, hey, he's not even going to find out, bro. Monken's not going to find out because we're going to run things in here just like Colonel King, you know, Major King at the time, but Colonel King used to tell us, like, if you're messed up, I'm going to fix you as your brother because I don't want anybody outside my family fixing you, making us look good, right? Like that, we are going to hold each other accountable. Your ask for class is messed up? Nah, we're going to go iron it together as a brotherhood. And that is when you talk about, when you said it's strong right now, that's what we're talking about. Yeah. Is the high expectations and high accountability. And I mean, you know, we talk about all these, and you've been in some of the best units, kinetic operations, right? That's what they do. High expectations, high accountability, and look at that. It translates directly into good Army leadership.
Yep.
I was going to say that, talking to you, Kelvin, from the Ellerson era to the Monken era, the accountability is the word, right? But I think the word is, Steve, you got it perfectly. It's player account. And Kelvin, you told the story. It's player accountability more than anything else, right? Because the coaches could give you the thumbs up or the thumbs down on a mat drill, but still, when you're holding each other accountable, that's where kind of maybe the brotherhood gets stronger. Am I right when that happens? Or
yeah,
I think I still remember Colonel King, Major King at the time, looking me in my eyes as a junior about to be senior captain, about to go into my senior year, and him telling me about player accountability and how me, will hold this team accountable. And like when he told me that, when he looked me in my eyes and told me that, I was like, this is a no-fail mission. Like I will hold everybody accountable for everything, and I need to figure out how I'm going to do it. And it was with other seniors and other informal leaders. So, man, great. I love hearing Ellerson and Monken transition stories. They're the best.
I mean, and they were like, they just stuck forever. You know what I'm saying? So like, Sal, I don't know if you remember when Coach Lou Holtz came. That would have probably been like spring of my junior going into my senior year.
I wasn't present, but I know he was there.
Coach Holtz came and he said, like it takes, there's like levels to winning or whatever. And I'm not going to like butcher his stuff because Coach Holtz is a phenomenal coach and he does, he had a phenomenal career, but like you like want to win, then you act like you win, then you become competitive and then you win. Right. And like if you talk about like wanting to win, like we've always wanted to win. We're at West Point. We always want to win. But then you have to like put in the work to like become competitive. And it's hard for me to talk about because when I was a senior, we lost 7 games by like 33 points, I think, a total of 33 points. Like one possession games, 7 of them. So the fact of the matter is like we were extremely competitive. But to Steve, to your point, like we were definitely able to transition like the accountability piece because the guys after me, like Andrew King, like, Ahmad Bradshaw, and then, like Kelvin after him, and then Tyre, like all of these things. Like I never played with those guys. Like I think Kelvin was a freshman when I was a GA, but like you could like see the thing, like the baton, like the physical thing being handed off between classes of like I was there when we sucked. And like, I'm not going to suck no more. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, we don't suck here. And if you think that Coach Monken's going to have to be the one to bring the mace and he's going to have to be the one to like bring it down, like you're crazy. It's not going to leave the locker room. So
there's a lot of teams, and Sal will probably know them, but we've talked to a lot of guys from a lot of the years. And a lot of the successful teams talk about the year prior was not as successful, but they were talented. We just didn't know how to win yet, or we were competitive, but we couldn't get over the humps in like so many games. Ronnie Makeda's talks about that before the 96 team. I talk about that. The 2009 team, I thought was a more athletic version than the 2010 team that we had. We talk about, the 85 bowl team, and they talked about how the 84 team was actually a little better. And when I hear you say that, it almost seems like we have to go through that learning process or that learning experience of like, we're close. We're this close, and now it has to be you guys because I can't do it anymore. We can't do it. Has to be you. And you have to do it because I put everything I had into this, and I want it more than anything. And it's got to be you guys. And as I hear you talk about it, I can feel it, And I know, as someone who kind of went through something similar, that it's just that is just something that had to be. And unfortunately, it was, 7 games by that many points, man. It's just, but
yeah.
we see that the following year, right? The very next year, right, Kelvin?
Well, I was a coach. I was a graduate assistant. I was offensive.
Yeah. Well, Kelvin, I was at the banquet right after your senior year, and Coach saying that you guys are going to flip the that the guys in the room are going to flip the record next year, and it virtually happened. Virtually happened, and for you to be, involved in that and be a GA, a coach with that team, kind of walk us through that a little bit. We can go through a little bit more memories in a little bit of your playing career, but walk us through that and what that was like, since we're on topic.
Yeah, I think just the part of, like, Steve hit it perfectly, right? I feel like we were the foundation era, right? The change from Ellerson to Monken, and like there's a forgotten era back in the 70s, the early 80s. That's what they call themselves at the Army football outing. And I think 14 to 16 or 14 to 17 were legitimately like the foundation era, because like we didn't get the to reap the rewards and the benefits that we sowed. But man, I'll tell you what, like we were in that thing, watering the bamboo, like every single day. Like we were the one, like we were the guys who held each other accountable, and then it just like continued with the inertia. But I think when I was a graduate assistant, Coach Monken allowed me to coach the tight ends because I was the tight end. And I think, being able to be in the offensive line room and coach those guys, and then run the scout team with, Pat Tracy was the other quality control, and Danny Verpel was also there. And I think, now Danny's back. He's on defense with the safeties. But I think just having like the closeness to those guys, because I was like very, very close, with the guys from 2017. I think like 5 of them were in my wedding. Like we're best friends.
Wow.
And I think being able to like be there and like hold those dudes accountable, like as a second lieutenant, like, I mean, I'm still their brother at the end of the day, but like now I have like this like level of maturity, and, I'm supposed to be, a leader for them and things like that. But I was able to stay there and just like help them, when they had questions or, whatever they had, like, hey, what did this happen? And, if you look at Quentin Parker, Zach Som, guys that were in the tight end room, like Sean McBride, like, man, like it is, those dudes did all the stuff that I did. And I think the tight end in the Army offense is a phenomenal position. And I think regardless of if we go under center or the shotgun offense, and, Coach Monken did a phenomenal job answering that question, and, definitely took responsibility for the changes that we had last year. And we're moving forward. We're just going to be Army. Like we're going to do what the Army does, and, find a way to win, whatever that takes. So, but back to my thing, I think the experience that I had playing quarterback, wide receiver, tight end, long snapper, I was on special teams. So like I'm in 5 meetings before the game. I took 4 position group tests every game. Like I really knew the offense. Like I could tell you what the center did, what the guard did on every single play against every single defense. And like having that like level of knowledge of the offense is just like superpower. It's like a superhuman strength, because now I can like go into any position group. I can go into any place and like any room and tell them like, yep, this is what it's supposed to look like. This is what you're supposed to do against a covered, like, you know what I'm saying? So I think Coach Monken had, a really, really big, a big amount of like respect and confidence in my ability to like coach these guys on the back end of that when I transitioned to second lieutenant. So it was, and then obviously we beat Navy. I was the number 82 jersey mannequin. If you guys didn't see that, I'm hanging up there in the Kimsey Hall now. I take a picture with it every time I'm up there. But yeah, it was phenomenal. It was just a great time, Sal.
That win over Navy is definitely, we talked to Nick Schregg about it. last podcast. That's something that you probably will never forget, right? That's something that you still remember. Maybe even the final snap. I remember the final snap being on the field, seeing the knee being taken, and then storming of the field. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. And you may have not been a player, but you were part of the team as a graduate coach. So that's got to rank right up there for you.
Oh yeah, I mean, obviously everyone from 01 to 14 or 01 to 16, whatever, like wanted to beat Navy. Everybody wants to do that. We'll wake up. Steve will wake up. I'll wake up, and I'll never have beaten Navy as a player. But being on the field when that happened and like just feeling the energy, then going on to win a bowl game too, like man, like that's just like, it was so refreshing. And then to just be able to continue that into, my professional career, as an infantry officer, and that stuff is just, it's a part of me, it's one of my identities. I'll never not look like a football player. I'll never not, think like a football player. And like, I just want to hammer home the point that Steve said, like the best class on professionalism and leadership is between the White Lions and Mikey Stadium. Like I'll bet my whole life check on that, because those guys are, just like, look at it. Like All-American 6, Army football player, Dragon 6, Army football player, Bronco 6, Army football. We could go on, like you could go on for days, but like when you like really think about it, like Army football players are, and I'll say Army just like athletes in general, because like the guys who play basketball, the guys who did other things like hockey players, like that's hard too, right? You have like your own hard, but like I was really ready to do whatever it took, to make that team successful when I played.
It's just so many parallels when you become a combat arms, I'm just speaking from combat arms because that's all I know at this point in my career. But like you just said, like you'll do whatever you'll have to do to win. That is so important as a leader, because you have to do it with character. You have to do it within the rules of engagement. You have to do it within, there's still ways you have to do it. And that's what Army football teaches you as a young cadet and as a future leader is we're going to figure this out. And that's why winning's so important, man. And that's why it's important to the United States Army. It is a completely different Army in December when you beat Navy. I've experienced it now. I hadn't to that point, but I've experienced it a lot, and it's just better. So, and that brings us to our second interaction where our paths cross, where you come to IBOLC as lieutenant, and I just happen to be an IBOLC instructor at that time. So we're at Benning at the same time now, Fort Moore.
Yeah, man, I was, I think there was like a Floyd Mayweather was fighting Conor McGregor. I think I came and watched that fight at your house, Steve, me and Dre, and probably Curtis. And man, I'll tell you what, like I'm back here now at Fort Moore, so that's where I'm stationed at. And just to like see the younger guys, it's crazy. It is just like, it is crazy. So like what you did for me, where I'm in I'm in a different IBOLA class than the one that you were teaching, but like guys were like, hey, have you seen that guy, like Captain Anderson? Have you seen him? And I'm like, oh yeah, like Fitty, like that's my man's, like that's my guy. We go way back. And like but like the intensity is insane. And the thing about Steve Anderson that like if anybody who doesn't know him, which is probably not that many of you guys watching this, but like you don't see Steve Anderson or interact with him and then just like forget about this guy. Like this dude is like unforgettable. His presence, his like charisma, his intensity is like next level, and I cannot wait to see what he does in space. So
yeah, it'll be I'm here now, so I'll tell you what day one's about. If I'm allowed to, I don't know. It's a bunch of secret stuff, so we'll have to figure that out. So But yeah, so your iBullock experience. What schools did you go through while you were at Fort Benning, now Fort Moore? At that time, did you do Airborne Ranger? Did you do any Bradley Leader? Where'd you go after that? Would kind of tell us how that experience it was and how either Army football, helped you. Was iBullock, easier because of what you experienced at the academy with Coach Monken, and your peer leadership skills before you headed out and went overseas?
Yeah, so I did iBullock. I do think I had like a different experience than most of the guys in my class, since I got there like a lot later. Most of the guys were getting there in the summertime. I got there like the next February, March.
Yep.
So I was in class.
It was the same exact timeline as mine. Was a February class up.
Yeah, so I was in class with a lot of like National Guard guys, and it was just like a different experience for me, which I'm super close to those guys still, which is awesome. That being said, I do think, coming out of like graduate assistant, I had a lot of time to like on the back end to like become an infantry officer and like, learn, get mentored, because the infantry officers that are at West Point are phenomenal guys, especially the ones that want to be a part of the team. So I had a lot of great mentors that helped me and like made me successful. And then having the ability to like look at guys like, Jeff Bacon, who was the year before me, T-Bag, Terry Baggett, guys who were down there, Fort Moore, Fort Benning, and like a class ahead of me. So having those dudes who set phenomenal examples for me, I felt really, really good going through iBullock. And, I don't know what iBullock looks like now, but I think at the time, we spent a lot of time out in the field. We spent a lot of time like getting ready for Ranger school, and a lot of people call it like pre-Ranger. I don't necessarily know if it was that, because, I go to Ranger school and I failed 3 times in a row. Like, I'm the Division I football player. I'm big, strong, fat. I'm like, I wasn't as big as I am now, but I was like still a big dude. I was still running fast. I was physically fit, and I failed push-ups like 3 times in a row. And when you talk about like a humbling experience, it was a crazy, crazy event for me, because I thought I was just going to roll the old gold helmet out there and, go 60 days through. And, that wasn't the case. It was like, that was probably the lowest point I had since, I couldn't even imagine, like in my professional career, that was the lowest I've been. So failed push-ups day 1, both times, went back a month later, failed push-ups again. And then I had a break in a month. And like, thankfully I talked to my unit over there in 2nd Cavalry Regiment, Colonel Adam Lackey now. And he was like, yep, we'll sign the papers and send you back a 3rd time. And I failed the push-ups again, like the 1st time, and I passed the retest. And I was in that class with, Mitch Dutton, who's a special forces officer now, DeAndre Bell, who's my best man at my wedding, my best friend. Sal, you know all about DeAndre.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So we were in that class together. We graduated together. And I have that picture framed, me and Dre putting our Raider tabs on each other. But, it was a crazy time for me, because I thought, every infantry officer needs a Ranger tab. I'll say that. I can stamp that one. If anybody wants to, you don't need a Ranger tab to be successful as an infantryman. Like that's fine. You say what you need to, but in my time in the Army, I think like you need that. If you want to continue to do that and you want to continue to be successful in the Army, just handle your business and get it done. So then I passed airborne school. I went over to 2nd Cavalry Regiment, took a platoon, and then we went to the Suwalki Gap in Poland for 6 months for NATO mission enhanced forward presence.
We're still there.
Yeah, we have that thing still there. And then I came home. I got selected to be the scout platoon leader, which is like a 2nd platoon, which is awesome. And then I tore my ACL playing in the Turkey Bowl. I had like 6 touchdowns, dogged those guys out. Just like, I was like close enough to my prime that I still had it. You know what I'm saying? But again, when you talk about crucible life events, I was the lowest of the lows. I had just got fenced by 3rd Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment to go serve there. Pat Neely was down there. Terry Baggett was down there. Jeff Bacon was down there. Then Major Ferreter had fenced me. Now I think he's Lieutenant Colonel of Fulberg. And I was like on cloud. I was higher than, draft, what. Man, I'll tell you what, and it was crazy. I was walking around like, I was this, I was that. And then divine. It's a divine intervention because it crippled me. It put me on my knees. And I was alone. I tore my ACL. I had to get surgery, microfractures in my femur. It was just like a really, really bad time for me. Couldn't go to Ranger Regiment anymore as lieutenant. Thought my career was over. I was single. I lived on my platoon sergeant's couch. Him and his wife took care of me. I tried to come home to Keller to have Dr. Posner do it, and they wouldn't let me because they had, the launch stool, TRICARE. They wouldn't let me come back. So the guy who did my ACL surgery, it was like his first one of the year. Where Doc Posner was doing 6 a week or something like that. So that was like kind of frustrating for me. I was single. I lived on the 3rd floor in a German apartment. Like I said, I lived with my platoon sergeant. And man, I was just crippled. I was crippled. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was going to get out of the Army. I was going to do all this stuff. And then, again, it's divine intervention. I met my wife, Emily, and, the rest is history, right? It's good times.
Yeah.
It's the lowest point of my life.
When you talk about how you felt up until you tore your ACL, things are going your way in your career, and whatever you want to call it, faith, God, divine, said you need to be humbled a little more before you go do what we're going to send you to go do, because you ended up serving right in the regiment later on in your career, but it just took a wife to calm you down from jumping out of the Army, and just kind of reset yourself physically, emotionally, and mentally, and spiritually, and so you end up finishing your time as scout platoon leader, right?
Yeah. So they moved me to staff when I got surgery.
Yeah.
So I spent 14 months on staff, and then I became a troop XO right before I came back to MCCC. Yeah.
And then you came to CCC, and that experience went well. The interview was AIM around there, or was that still?
Yep.
Yeah. So you went through the name cycle and got slotted to go to the 101st. So that's and that's where we crossed paths again, right?
Again.
I was a company commander in the 101st, and then here comes Kelvin, company commander in the 101st. So it's like, when I truly say, like, I look at Kelvin as a younger brother, man, like, I've known him since 2011, and his career is just kind of, like, we've kind of had little touch points throughout it to where I just feel blessed that, it brings me back to, like, I remember seeing this 6'4", 225-pound cadet candidate playing quarterback in a triple option. I'm just like, holy, this is insane,
and Fiddy, I think also to add to that,
and I know you had a great time in the 101st, and I know it wasn't without frustration too, just as any position is. You can talk a little bit about 101st, but kind of going full circle, right? You missed out as regiment, as lieutenant, right? And you crushed command. And you can tell, you can go on from here, but I love full circles, how it kind of, it's his plan,
Yeah. And I think it is all divine, Steve. Because to your point about us being connected, like, I'll get a call from Steve randomly. Like we hadn't talked in months, and then Steve will call me, and then we haven't talked in months, and I'll call Steve, and then we'll catch up, and it'll be like, what's going on with you and all this stuff, and like we're always in the know with each other, and I think, life's a contact sport, brother, and I think it's phenomenal that we've been able to like keep at this thing for so long. But yeah, so I commanded in the 101st. Cherokee Company 126th Infantry Regiment, 2nd Brigade, 101st. And it was the best time of my life, dude. And you guys, and Steve, I was waiting to talk about this. You said to me, Coach Monken, when he came, like he taught you things that you'll keep forever. And when I tell you that, like I took my, Cherokee 6 command philosophy, it was literally the tenets of Army football: toughness, humility, effort, and execution. Those things. It was THEE. Obviously, I was like, I can't just rip it off. I'm not going to do plagiarism. So I just changed.
Should have just put in tiny 4-point font in the footnotes.
Yeah. So I just changed effort to empathy, and that was Cherokee's thing. So our motto was scalp them all, but we did toughness, physical, mental, humility, obviously within you, empathy, worrying about other people, and then execution is obviously how we do our jobs as infantrymen. You have to execute. But I think, and I'll tell a crucible event of command real quick, and it's a pretty low point for me again. But my first day of command, I took the guide on Friday. I had my baby shower for my daughter Tatum on Saturday, and then on Saturday I had a soldier die by suicide that Saturday night. I was inebriated, and my first sergeant came to my house, and like this is the stuff that they tell you at West Point of like, when you do those like PME classes and stuff, like this is literally that scenario. So Sergeant Edwards had been in the company for 4 years. And the next morning I woke up and I had to form my company up and tell them that, a guy that they've all known for 4 years had died by suicide. So the next day, so Sunday that happened. Monday I head out for my company live fire for my brigade FTX. Like that day. So like when you want to talk about like finding a way to like connect people, and you want to find a way to make sure that the job gets done. There's like hard stuff. There's like really, really hard stuff that happens. And I can't say that anything at Army football, like, directly made me prepared or prepared me for that situation, because like that was really, really difficult for me. But at the end of the day, dude, like I'm a hard bodied guy, like I am who I am because of the things that I learned at West Point, and all of the things that I've had to go through. And like that, I thought that event alone was like, gonna cripple me. But everybody knows that on the backside of adversity and on the backside of like pain and trauma, like, bones grow back harder, like they grow back stronger. So, rest in peace to Sergeant Edwards. And the company went out and did their company live fire like crazy. Like I'm talking like next, like created player on Madden 99. Everybody was just like, they were just dogs. So
yeah, and it goes back to, I was just listening to a podcast, and that's how you honor the fallen, right? You don't honor them by drinking a bunch of alcohol and hanging on their grave. You honor them by how you live and how you perform and how they would want you to perform. And that's what your company did for Sergeant Edwards.
Yeah.
And you talk about, you've mentioned Divine a few times now. You got to believe Sergeant Edwards was pushing them, hand on their shoulder throughout that live fire. And it's just kind of, nobody is immune to loss. All of us will suffer loss, and how we honor that is how we honor that loss is how we live. So thanks for sharing that, Kelvin. I know that's not, it's not an easy story to tell, especially it being the first full day on the job. But it's really, it shows your maturity at a time of 28, 29 years old, to lead a company through live fires, where you're going to get, you just had soldier lose his life, and then you're going to go hand 150 fire breathers, live ammunition at night. So it just talks about the dynamic of what we do is dangerous.
Right.
And just being able to, again, execution, why it's so important and why it was on your tenets, why it was on your philosophy is it makes sense.
Yeah. And so fast forward, we go to the box, right? JRTC. And then the Russia invades Ukraine while I'm in the box. And my wife, we don't have our phones, right? So, my wife is my SFRG leader, and she's getting messages like, "Oh, we're already in Ukraine. We're already there. Like, my kids are there. My son is there. My husband's there. Blah blah blah." Not the case. We finish the box. We get the orders. It comes out from SecDef that we're going to go, and it's going to be my brigade going to Romania. And then my company ended up going to Slovakia. So we were the only company, the only U.S. Footprint in Slovakia. It was in Lest training area, about an hour and a half west of the Ukrainian border. And, we saw guys, like we had like combined training with Ukrainian like frontline forces who came back to, do some like mount training and stuff like that over there. So we were part of a NATO battle group. It was a phenomenal time, and then once I was done with command, I had the opportunity to go to a Ranger Assessment and Selection Program too, and like earn an opportunity to join the 75th Ranger Regiment again. So Steve, when you talk about full circle stuff, for all of the guys who are listening out there who, maybe didn't get the opportunity to go as a lieutenant, or maybe your battalion commander didn't support you, or, you got hurt or something like that. I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt that the 75th Ranger Regiment, because of all the things that they do professionally, because of the amount of, people that they have there, the caliber of people, it is a phenomenal organization. So if anybody wants to go there, just know that it's like that lifeline doesn't shut off if you don't go as lieutenant, which a lot of people believe, because I'm here now, I'm living it. So, yeah, great, phenomenal organization. And Steve, to not only mention this again, but the guy who hired me, his name is Parker Height. He's currently the Regimental Special Troops Battalion HHC commander. Parker Height was a football player at West Point.
Yeah.
So
it's it's kind of like, tell us what's next, man. What's next on the Kelvin White journey?
Well, this is a great platform to say it. So I actually got accepted to the University of Notre Dame to go to Mendoza College of Business. So I deferred this semester in the fall. I will go to Notre Dame next fall, 2025, and then graduate in the class of 2027 for a full 2-year MBA, and I will exit the military. So I actually have knee surgery this coming Friday. I'll go under the knife here, and then I will start my CSP process in the beginning of November, and then I'll be out by next May or next June, on my way to South Bend. And then I mentioned my wife earlier. My wife is also a service member. Her name's Emily, and we met in Germany, Tenerife Islands, actually. It's the Canary Islands. It's not the biggest one, but it's the nicest one. And, we eloped in Copenhagen, Denmark. She's awesome. She is the person who's grounded me. Steve already mentioned that once. And it is crazy. I've got 2 beautiful kids with her, Tatum Simone White and Kelvin Lamont White II. He goes by Deuce. And he'll be class of 2040 or something like that. I'm not really sure, but Deuce White will be on the scene, falling behind Steve's kids. So it is what it is. But
she's gonna be the APM AMPS there, right?
She will be. She will be the Army ROTC instructor at Notre Dame, and she commissioned from Notre Dame in 2017. She's a graduate of St. Mary's College, which is across the St. Mary's Pond there in South Bend, from Notre Dame. So it'll be reps, baby. Lyle Bellany, my man. It'll be awesome for my family. It'll be awesome for her. Her mother is a graduate of Notre Dame, class of 1982. Humongous ties back to South Bend. And then me having the opportunity to go there, be a part of like the veterans organization there.
And gain some cred with the mother-in-law, dude. Duh.
Yeah, it all comes full circle. You know what I'm saying? So this is a huge opportunity for us. And then I'll just do a quick shout out to Lieutenant Colonel Will Kobe. He is the PMS there now. He was a previous Ranger Regiment logistician. And he was also one of my DPE instructors at West Point when I was there. He's graduated from Trinity High School, Central Pennsylvania's finest. He's a graduate of Villanova, and now he's at Notre Dame as the PMS. And like, it just makes too much sense. You know, there's too many irons in this fire. He really would love to have my wife come back and be an APMS, because 40% of his cadets in the Notre Dame Army ROTC program are women. And my wife, obviously being a woman who graduated from that organization, just be a phenomenal role model for those women and those like future leaders of soldiers. So I mean, stars don't align that many times. So when they do, you gotta shoot them. So I'm super, super, super excited. And man, this is good. It's hard, right? It's a hard transition. But for all the people that are out there and you've served your time and you're looking for stuff to do, I think just reach out to us, reach out to whoever. And, you know, Steve's V-tipped. I'm getting out, but I promise you, if somebody called Steve Anderson and was like, hey, I'm thinking about going to grad school, he would call 7 other dudes and he would be like, hey, talk to this guy. And the lifeblood of the Army Football Brotherhood is, like, I don't need to put you on a calendar. If Steve Anderson texts me and say, hey, this guy's going to call you, then I'm going to pick up my phone and I'm going to talk to that guy. Even if I didn't play with him, like I never played with Steve Anderson. I never played with, you know, Max Jenkins. I never played with insert anybody who I've talked to on the phone or, you know, met in person or, you know, that is it. And like to kind of end this, I know we're probably running a little long, but I want to tell you guys that everybody talks about, oh, when you go to West Point, you know, you'll be able to get into all these doors and all these places. And like, I've been to one Army football golf outing and when I was a GA, but like now that I'm like transitioning out and like I'm actually like actively networking and looking to connect, like the Army football outing when we were on Kimsey was the direct manifestation of all the things that people talked about. Everybody from class of 70, 79, 81, 82, 3, 4, 91, 05, 95. Like, I'm talking, it was insane. Like, dudes that don't know me, never met me. We just, like, played football and we just shot it. And then, like, you create, like, this lifelong bond. And, like, that part of, like, life is a contact sport. And, you know, you could just, like, call this person if you needed something. And, like, man, that is truly phenomenal. So all the guys out here, if you played Army football and you didn't go to the event this year, like, come to the next one. I'm hoping to put some like lifeblood into the Army Football Club. I was the youngest guy there, class of 2016, aside from the graduate assistants, Jacoby and Cam Jones. So just like be a part of it. We want you there. We want you to be there. We want to, you know, spend time with you. We want to hear your stories. We want to hear, all the stuff that you're doing now, and whether that you like continue service or you're getting out and you're chasing something else, or whatever it is that you're doing, like we want to hear about it. We want to be there for you. We want to see you continue to achieve greatness, no matter what it is. And man, it's just there's no better bond than the Army Football Brotherhood, man. Oof.
Yeah, I think Kelvin, in a way, that's how this Black Knight Nation podcast. It's like I used to go to those the Friday nights at the Kimsey at the Army Football Club golf outings, and you were able to talk to literally like Joe Steffi. I was able to sit next to Outland Trophy winner and hear stories about Joe Steffi back in the day. Bob Novogratz, a guy who played on the 58 team with Pete Dawkins and was blocking for Pete Dawkins. You get to hear their stories not only on the football field, but also after West Point. And it's just amazing. Like I've been trying to get there the last couple of years. That's kind of the footprint of this podcast, getting to hear, former players and their life stories. And it's quite I'm sure it's like, I'm just the guy who covered the team. You're part of the club. The bond that you have with former players. I can't imagine what those 2 days are like, but definitely I echo those sentiments. Definitely get out to that thing if you're a former player, and even if you can't play golf, even if you're like lousy like me, just get out there and it's great. Man, we could probably do a part 2 with you, Kelvin. There's a couple things I wanted to touch on during your playing career, but I mean, we probably hit the time here, but we really appreciate it. Steve, you got any other last parting?
No, yeah, I think a part 2's will be in the future. And hey, Kelvin, thanks for coming on, man. Always good hearing your story. I love hearing the things I didn't know about you, and thanks for sharing and spending some time with us on Black Knight Nation.
No, you guys are phenomenal, and thank you guys so much for doing this. Continue to reach out to those guys, and they're phenomenal guys who played before, after you, who would love to come on here and chop it up with you too. And Sal, just for your edification, when I was there this weekend, Coach Monken and I talked about you. So you are a known quantity in that organization. And man, just whatever you guys are doing, just keep doing it. Steve, please don't be a stranger. Sal, same to you. Thank you guys so much for having me on here. I look forward to the next opportunity I get to be here with you guys.
Absolutely. We appreciate having Kelvin White on tonight. Guys, check out our YouTube channel for more interviews like this. We'll be back soon. We're working on, Steve, I'm working on a couple. You're working on a couple. We're going to have more interviews like this coming up very soon before the start of, Army camp. So thanks a lot, guys, for hitting us tonight. And check out our website, blackknightnation.com. Tons of recruiting stories. A story on Jimmy Charlo. Becoming an ordained minister and marrying Spencer Jones last month. I was able to get some photos from the wedding, able to talk to Jimmy and Spencer through some DMs and stuff like that and write that story up. That's what the Brotherhood's all about. We heard about what the Brotherhood was all about tonight with Kelvin and Steve. And guys, we'll see you next time on the Black Knight Nation podcast.
See you guys.
Beat 'em.